Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Hey everybody, it's Wednesday, so it's time for another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. What's up, Fruit Loop?
Nothing much.
We have been in this case that we're going to introduce tonight, the Pike County Massacre days in front of my computer.
Yeah, you've been like more than me.
Oh, man.
But yeah.
It's been, because these murders happened in 2016, so we've had a few years to catch up on, and we're going to get to that. But first, we have some updates with some motions that were filed by Rob Wood.
Yep. So motion to compel on March 10th at 9 a.m.
Finally got that scheduled.
Yep. Okay, this one was like really weird. So
this is the motion to compel, though. This I believe this is it, right?
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So Chad Daybell's expert witness refuses to be named.
Oh.
Like,
who is the man behind the curtain?
Yeah, they're gonna put a curtain up. So
or get one of those voice changers.
Yeah.
On the stand.
Luke, you are my father.
Wah,
yeah.
wah, wah.
Yeah, like what? I mean, they have to know who you are to be considered an expert witness.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but like, are we just going to say anonymous expert witness says this? It could be like a 10-year-old for all we know.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so there's a motion to compel at 9 a.m. on the 10th for that. And there's a special coming on Friday. I'm very interested to watch this.
Yeah, there was it looked interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The 2020 special, Friday. I don't know what time. I don't remember.
Probably 8 or 9.
Yeah.
One of the two. Melanie Pulaski is going to be on there. I'm interested to see what she has to say.
Yeah.
We just talked about the picture that we saw of her with her 5 kids. Man, they've got some beautiful babies.
Yep.
Really cute kids.
Yep.
Saw Larry and Kay as well are going to be on it.
Yep.
So we're going to watch that. We'll be covering every hearing in this case. And then we have a little update about Letitia.
Yep. You want to do that one?
Yeah. So on February, the hearing was supposed to have been today, I believe, for representation. We don't know if they're going to give her new counsel or if she's going to represent herself. That hearing was supposed to be today, has been moved to the 24th.
Okay, that's today.
Okay, that's today.
26.
26, yes. Friday at 3:00, and we will cover that. I believe it's open to the public. So, no, I'm getting all these cases. See, this is why I never wanted to do other cases, because we stink at math and numbers, and so they all get mixed up in my head.
Yeah, I think it's open to the public.
Maybe not.
I mean, it's going to be like zoomed in, but
yeah. Okay. So anyways, February 26th at 3, I do think that is open to the public. So we'll cover that on our Twitter. We'll live tweet it. And if you're at work and you can't watch, just follow us on our Twitter, and we will keep you updated on what happens with that.
Yep. It's funny to watch you do that though.
Oh man, I'm like,
I forgot.
I'm in the zone.
It was one of Chad or Lori's things you did.
Yeah.
And I was over here and you were like, we were sitting where we are now.
Yeah.
And it was like
yeah, I get in a mode. I focus in, and I think the house could be on fire if I'm like with my headphones on covering a hearing, and I wouldn't know till it was right at me.
Yeah. How about this weather?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if you don't live in South Carolina, I'm sorry. Right now at least. We've had like spring weather for the last 2 days. It is just nice.
And it was like 72 and sunshine.
Yeah, I had shorts and a t-shirt on all day and just a little spring training.
Yeah.
Getting ready for spring. I'm just not a cold weather person. I'm pretty sure when I'm old, I'm going to retire to California.
I can do both. Like I can do cold and hot. But when I was in Arizona and it was like 120 degrees, I didn't like that.
Yeah. It's a special hot out there for sure.
Yeah.
So I have followed this case very, very loosely since it happened. We're going to talk about the Pike County Massacre, which is a case out of Ohio where 8 members, 2 generations, were all murdered in one night. And there is a family of 4, the Wagners, that are in custody for these killings.
Yeah, this case is huge. Like, I've heard you've talked about it, and we've sat and talked about it, and I think we even watched a couple of things on it.
Yeah, about a year ago, there's a really good special on Oxygen. I know for me, I found it through Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, I believe it's free for you. But it's called the Pike County Massacre, and it's about an hour and a half special where they interview people that were close to this case when it first happened, and it's just been insane. So
there's also an app. There is an Oxygen app because that's how I watched it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And if you have TV subscription or whatever, you just put your stuff in and you get to go.
So the one thing we were mentioning, which is definitely relevant, is a lot of times we think about how long this is taking with Lori and Chad to get charges and just for this case to seem like it's moving forward in some big way. I mean, it's moving forward in little ways, but in big ways. So this murder happened overnight between April 21st and 22nd of 2016. There were not arrests for 19 months between the murder and the arrests, and they still have not gone to trial.
Yeah.
So we're going on 5 years since the murders, and the first trial in this case is not scheduled until August of this year. So just as a little bit of a reference, 5 years.
It's slow.
It's going to be over 5 years since the deaths. So
I think we need to take out the right, don't let people deny the right to a speedy trial. So they just have to have a speedy trial.
Yeah. So this was the largest criminal investigation in history in Ohio.
Yeah, it's their biggest case. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this area, Fruit Loop.
So Piketon, Ohio, the population is around 2,000. Pike County population is around 30,000, and it's about 90 miles east of Cincinnati.
But it's a very, I don't want to say isolated, but it's a lot of farmland. It's
rural.
I can't even say that word.
Rural.
My tongue just goes.
I know you were dodging it.
Yeah, my tongue goes, nope.
Yeah.
We're not going there.
See, we learned in school, urban and rural.
Yeah, I can't do, I can't get the rural. Yeah, say it like
rural.
See, I can't do it. It's like, okay, but anyways, before I embarrass myself further, I'm going to say right now, and I really hope you guys stick with us on this. This case is intriguing. But just a word of caution. You might want to pause the podcast right now and either go to our Facebook or Twitter page and pull up the tree of who's who. If not, Google Wagner Rhoden murder and try to get a drop down picture menu, because there are 8 victims, 4 defendants, and some of the victims have the same name.
Yeah.
There are juniors and seniors and 2 Hannahs. So we're going to go through now and try to piece it together for you so that it makes sense once we get into the crimes and motive and everything else.
Yep. So the victims were Christopher Rhoden Sr. He was the dad. He's 40 years old. His ex-wife, they were divorced or whatever, but Dana Manley Rhoden, she was 38. And like I said, that's Christopher's ex-wife. They had divorced, but they still lived on the same road. Mm-hmm. So Clarence Frankie Rhoden, he's referred to as Frankie on most stuff you'll see, is Christopher and Dana's son, and his fiance was Hannah Gilly with an H.
And she was killed beside him.
Yep.
They were in the bed together and they were both shot and killed.
Yep.
So this is where we have the 2 Hannahs. Hannah Gilly is Frankie's fiance. They have 1 child together. Then you have Hannah Rhoden, who is 19, and that is Chris Rhoden Sr., and Dana's daughter. Also Frankie's sister.
Yes.
If you didn't heed my advice 90 seconds ago, pause this and go get you a drop-down tree.
Yep.
Okay, keep going, Fruit Loop.
So Christopher Rhoden Jr. is Christopher and Dana's son. They call him Little Chris. He was 16. Kenneth Rhoden is Christopher's older brother. And by Christopher, I mean Christopher Sr. Kenneth Rhoden is Christopher Sr.'s older brother. And then Gary Rhoden is Christopher and Kenneth's cousin.
So they're all members of the same family. Every one of the victims.
Yep.
2 generations, except, the kids they spared. There were 3 kids that were found inside the residences that were not harmed during the massacres.
Yeah.
So we have Kylie Rhoden, who was 4 days old. This is the daughter of Hannah Rhoden, who is Chris and Dana's daughter.
Yep.
She is the mother of one of the suspects' child. Oh gosh, this is so confusing, y'all. I'm sorry. Get the list.
So, one of the suspects, Jake Wagner, she has a kid with him, Sophia.
Right, and that's going to come in because there are going to be certain names you hear more often, and Hannah Rhoden and Jake Wagner are kind of the center of this because this is where the motive that authorities think originated.
Yep.
Is a custody dispute.
Yep.
So the other kids that were in the house, the 4-day-old was found, I think, in her mother's arms. You had Ruger Rhoden, who is the 6-month-old son of Frankie and Hannah Gilly. Then you have Bentley Rhoden, who was 3, and that was Frankie's child from another relationship.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the accused people.
So the accused are Billy Wagner III.
This is all one family.
This is the dad. Angela Wagner, who is Billy's wife. George Wagner IV, which is Billy and Angela's son. Jake Wagner, who is Billy and Angela's other son.
Right. So that's everybody. So just to summarize, Chris Sr. and Dana, who were killed, are the parents of Frankie, little Chris, and Hannah Rhoden. Kenneth Rhoden and Gary Rhoden are not members of that immediate family. It's a brother and a cousin. Then you have Sophia Wagner, which is, like we said, Jake Wagner and Hannah Rhoden's child. She was 3 years old at the time.
And she wasn't in the house.
She was not in the house. She was with her dad, who actually picked her up a day before the murders, and that was a day before he was supposed to pick her up.
Yeah.
He was supposed to have picked her up on the day of the murders. So she was with them the night that the murders happened, but we do not know where she was. Although the grandma, Billy's mother, Frederica Wagner, they're probably one of the Wagner family is probably one of your more rich families in town.
Yep.
So they had money. The suspects, all 4 of them, the Wagners had, the grandmother owns a farm there in Pike County. And what does she raise? Like show horses and...
Yeah, I think livestock, different kind of animals or whatever. And
like some really fancy pigs.
Fancy horses and pigs. And I don't know, has some type of breed of dog she bred or something.
Yeah. So essentially, before we kind of get any further, now that we've told you who everybody is, I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. So essentially, Jake Wagner, who is now in custody for one of the 4 charged with these murders, he started a relationship with Hannah Rhoden when she was 13 and he was nearly 18.
Yeah.
They started dating. Now, this is a really, really small town, and we've seen that a lot of the people associated with this case have had their children in their teens. So, I mean, there are teen pregnancy, obviously a problem all over the country. It just seems like maybe in these more smaller areas, it's just kind of what happens. I don't know, but it seems like everybody had their kids super young in this area.
Yeah.
So first of all, when Jake Wagner was arrested for all this, they tacked on a criminal sexual conduct charge, even though none of the parents before the murders ever raised any alarms, because they found out she was way too young. When the baby was born, he was over 18 and she was 15?
Yeah, I think he's like, what, 7 years older than her or something?
Yeah. And so they tacked that charge on because, I mean, they planned that pregnancy.
Yeah.
That pregnancy was planned.
Yep.
So
there's a couple other people one other lady that we left out is Rita Newcomb, who is Angela's mother. So she'll come into play here because there was some stuff.
Yeah, there were some charges, and both the grandmas were arrested at some point. So as far as the accused, they had some priors. They had some prior criminal history.
Yep.
So we're talking about the Wagners that are in jail now for the murders of the Rhodens.
Yeah, so in 2001, Billy Wagner was convicted of improper handling of a firearm. 2002, he was convicted of receiving stolen property. And then in 2012, Billy and Angela Wagner were convicted of receiving stolen property.
And I'll tell you, just in what we've done in the last few days, this family is a little weird in their need to do everything together. Some of the people in town said it was almost cult-like. They just never did anything without the other. And I really think there's some big control issue with these babies, the grandkids. People around town on the documentary last night, one girl said that the Wagners were seen as kind of prestigious.
Yeah.
Because they have money.
Yep.
So I guess the families knew each other. They were all very close, it seemed.
Yep.
In fact, Angela Wagner has said that her husband and Chris Sr. Were like brothers, but obviously something went south. Yeah. So speaking of the other family members arrested, you were talking about Rita Newcomb, who was Angela's mother.
Yep.
There was a custody dispute. And before we get into these arrests, I think it's probably going to be easier if we just sort of explain the custody dispute. So Jake and Hannah were living with each other. So they would spend time at Hannah's parents' house. They would go over to Jake's parents' house or Jake's house. And so they kind of floated between the two residences and lived together. And so apparently Hannah wanted to end the relationship with Jake. She had put some cryptic things on her Facebook that made her friends think, in hindsight, that maybe there was some abuse going on there with Jake, and she had made some statements. I think, in fact, that's one of the things that a defense attorney wanted to keep out of the upcoming trial, is that statements or proof that he had ever hurt a member of that family prior to the murders. So it seemed like Jake really wanted to work things out.
Yeah.
According to people that knew them. So they broke up, I believe, in April, and by August, Hannah is pregnant. This is before the murders happen. They break up. Hannah is seeing a couple of other guys. By August, she's pregnant with number 2. And at that point, she was not sure who the father of this baby was. She didn't know if it was the guy she was with at the time, who is Charlie Gilley, who is one of the victim, Hannah Gilley's brother. There's so many. Yeah. I'll be glad when we get past this introduction phase, because I'm like confusing myself over here.
Yeah. So getting back to Rita Newcomb, who was Angela's mother, she took a plea from felony to misdemeanor for obstructing official business. With all that child custody stuff, she forged a birth certificate that was involved in the custody dispute over Sophia Wagner. That was in April of 2016, and that was 19 days before the murders. Mm-hmm. Angela asked her from jail to lie about notarizing the custody documents and not testifying against them. And she was also caught talking to Jake.
Yeah, Angela was. And we can't figure that out. We don't know if it was maybe like through the phone relaying messages. It doesn't seem like it would be mail, because they read her mail, and I don't think she's supposed to have contact with somebody who's like a co-conspirator or whatever. Yeah. I don't know for sure. And there are some things, guys, that we do not have down pat. So if you hear us make a mistake and you're very familiar with this, let us know. because we're not perfect. Even though we think we are, we're not perfect, and we make mistakes.
So Rita originally pled not guilty, but changed her plea, saying that lying wasn't the Christian thing to do and she couldn't do it anymore. She was charged with obstruction of official business, a misdemeanor, perjury, and forgery charges were dropped.
It makes me think maybe, I mean, obviously they've asked her to testify against the family.
Yeah.
So we don't know what capacity or what she may know.
Like, it's weird that, I mean, Angela, she knows she's being recorded.
Yeah.
And you're going to say that knowing they're listening?
Yeah, and it's almost like, was she willing to kind of take the punch and just get that out to her mom?
Yeah.
Or do you get comfortable in jail and just forget you're being recorded?
Yeah, I say she doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean, her goose is cooked.
Yeah.
So maybe she just didn't want her mom, to, who knows?
Yep. So now she doesn't have phone or mail privileges. Or she didn't. I don't know if she's got it back by now, but.
Yeah, we're not sure. But they did take away those privileges when she broke the rules.
Yep. So.
If only she'd have had her own cell phone in prison.
Exactly. Where's Means at?
Yeah, come on.
Get Means in here. So Frederica Wagner, who you said before, is it's Billy's mother. She runs Flying W Farms. We told you she raises livestock and horses and stuff. She was charged for perjury and obstruction of justice. Those charges were later dropped. She was accused of lying during the grand jury testimony, saying she bought bulletproof vests on Amazon, but actually got them on eBay. She says she bought them to protect her son since he knew the Rhodens.
Right, but initially police thought that she had bought them for the family to wear during the murders.
Yeah.
But the charges were dropped in June of 2019. So, and she was kind of a pillar in her community. She's very wealthy. And on the documentary we watched last night, it talked about how she would bring, because this is in Appalachia, and the poverty rate, I believe, is 20% or more in this area. So a lot of kids go hungry, and she would do meals at her home for kids to make sure that at least when they left there, they had a full belly.
Yeah.
So they found the bulletproof vest in a room where Billy had been staying because he was working on that farm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Investigators also had recordings and text messages against the Wagners.
Yeah, there's a lot. Stuff's trickled out in this case, but largely it's reminiscent of Lori and Chad in that they've been very selective in what's been put out there.
Yeah.
Not much at all. There's been some things that kind of has come out over the years, but I'm really looking forward to this trial in August. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
And there's going to be 3 additional trials. This is going to be a big case.
It's a lot of information.
Right. And
it's like 4 terabytes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Stuff. Yeah.
And we think it's definitely going to take us a few episodes to get a very good grip on this case, at least to where we get current.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that's happened.
Yep.
4 years, almost 5 years, we're trying to play catch up. So.
Yep. So let's look at the background of the Wagners. So the Wagners own a lot of property. Like we said, Frederica owns that Flying W Farms. It's like 2,000 acres. She has some land. I want to say it's like 1,700 acres. And I don't know if that's included in that 2,000 or not, but it's like high priced, worth over like $4 million is what they said on that documentary last night.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
I bet Grandma's funding the defense.
Yeah, for real. So in 1991, Frederica was accused in 3 federal lawsuits of racketeering as her advertised top-notch pigs were found to not meet the standard of fitness represented. The case never went to trial.
Yeah.
That is the weirdest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
They can tell you your pigs are too large. They're not top-notch.
Yeah. I think it's like standard of fitness is like maybe she was saying these were pure-blooded Vietnamese potbelly pigs, and they were just like random potbelly pigs, like mutt potbelly. I don't know. It seems like maybe she was falsely advertising them as something they weren't.
I gotcha.
Yeah. I don't think that they were saying the pigs were fat.
Wonder
Sky's blue, pigs are fat.
I wonder
Sorry, Bruno.
How do you check the nationality of a pig?
I know. It's like, do you do DNA swabs and say, this is a dud?
I know what they use. Ancestry. They check those. And your ancestors were from Europe, and
Yours were from a mud pile in Iowa.
Exactly. Okay, sorry guys.
Sorry, y'all. This is how we normally do it. So.
Yeah. So at the time of the murders, Frederica was selling a trademark breed of dogs that she created, and they were like going for like $1,800 to $2,100. Sheesh.
See, I could never pay that much for a dog because it would be my luck. Like it would get hit by a car the next day.
Oh yeah.
$2,100.
Yep.
Crazy.
You would be at the vet.
Oh yeah.
You and your little cat over there.
Oh my gosh, that cat broke me the first month.
It's like, what are you doing today? I gotta take the cat to the vet. Yeah.
Yep.
So November of 2013, Sophia Wagner was born.
This is Jake and Hannah's baby.
Yep. We're just going to review a little bit here, guys. So Jake and Hannah lived together until 2015. Like we said, they floated back and forth between the Wagner home and the Rhoden home. Jake says they broke up because he was working a lot and didn't have time to spend with her. I think he might have been driving a truck maybe that time or something, maybe.
Yeah, he and his brother both were co-owners of an 18-wheeler.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, you think about Hannah, she is a kid, and she's maybe 15, 16, and he wanted her to be a stay-at-home mom. And she's a child. So she didn't want to be tied down.
Yep.
And she broke up with him.
Yeah.
And we think for other reasons too. There's obviously some control issues for sure.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, I have a niece who had a kid at 16, and you're not, and some people may be totally different, but I'm saying the 16-year-olds I've been around, they're not ready to be a parent.
No.
There's a lot that goes on with raising a kid, so.
And it's just not something that these kids think of. And I was just shocked to hear that they planned this pregnancy.
Yeah. And the scary thing with all these cases we've covered, there's one common denominator, or there's probably more than one, but is divorce.
Yeah.
And like we see here now, Sophia's spending time between each family.
Now, they weren't married.
No.
And in fact, she had posted something on her Instagram or Facebook, and it was a picture of Jacob Rhoden kissing Sophia.
Jake Rhoden?
Oh, gosh. See, there I go. Sorry, Jake Wagner. And the post is a picture of him kissing a small Sophia. So I would say it's a few months after her birth. And she says, tomorrow makes 4 years I've been with Jake. Blessed. A year from tomorrow, I will be marrying my best friend.
Yeah.
And that's what Hannah Rhoden put. And I would say Sophia's maybe 4 months in this picture.
Yeah. So August of 2015, Hannah is pregnant again, and DNA test confirmed Jake is not the father.
But the DNA test was done after Hannah was murdered.
Yep.
So that's the thing, is she had just given birth. She was only 4 days postpartum. So they probably had only been home a day or two.
Yeah.
Since she had the baby to when the murders happened. And that baby was found in her arms. All the babies, they said, were covered in blood and just unimaginable. I mean, I'm so thankful they didn't hurt the babies. The 3-year-old son of Frankie definitely has had some struggles since then. He thought his dad was playing zombies.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know how you look at another human being holding a 6-month-old and a 4-day-old.
Yeah.
And just shoot him in the head.
I multiple times. I mean, just vicious.
Yeah. Yep. So 6 days after the murders, Jake files for custody of Sophia and was awarded custody in May of 2016.
Yeah. And there was a family court attorney and that gave a comment to a news article. I don't remember which one. But that family court attorney said that it was almost unheard of that in 6 days you would get all this paperwork together for custody, which in their opinion just says they've been working on this for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the same thing, George the Fourth, who is the older brother, he had his son, he had his ex-wife Tabitha sign over custody to him. So it's a common theme.
Yeah, something's not right there.
It's very strange.
I mean, we talked that it's just weird. It's almost like, I mean, obviously she had 2 boys. So
Yeah.
Angela had 2 boys. There wasn't a girl.
Right.
But it's almost like they're obsessed with these kids.
Yeah.
Like
they didn't want to share.
Yeah, and wanting them to themselves. So I think the document that she signed was identical to what Jake produced for custody of Sophia.
Yeah.
And the papers gave custody to Angela in the event something happened to Jake or George the Fourth
instead of the kids' mothers, which it's weird. What they found was that both custody documents had been printed from a laptop that was owned by Jake Wagner, but it seems like they've proven mostly Angela used it.
Yeah.
So, so let's see here.
If you think about, like, people don't know this, but like printers kind of have a memory. I know anytime we've worked with companies, like printers, they want everything wiped out. I don't ask me how, but so I think there's like information that they can get out of that somehow.
Yeah. There's no telling. They can tell literally when trash bags were produced by the ridges on them.
Yeah.
So what they can do and find out about things is just amazing.
Digital evidence is like crazy.
Yeah. So we talked about Hannah posting that she was planning to get married in 2015. And I was looking around on their social media accounts, and her Pinterest page was all wedding ideas. There was nothing else. And she and Jake also had rings tattooed on their finger, I guess to show their commitment before they were married. But Jake says in his affidavit that he and Hannah were physical with each other in a sexual way throughout that summer. So
that's why he was thinking that the new baby might be his.
Right. But later that summer, she had broken up with this Charlie Gilly guy. Yeah. And then entered into another relationship with a third guy named Corey, and that kind of broke Jake. According to people that knew both of them, that was sort of when it was clear to him that it wasn't she didn't want to be in a relationship, she just didn't want to be with him.
Yeah, it sounded like it wasn't healthy.
No, it's not healthy if you're 13 and you're dating somebody who's almost 18, just in a general sense. And then the fact that he's an adult and he's allowing this girl to plan a pregnancy with him, it's all messed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
All crazy. So little Chris had told a friend not too long before the murder, or not too long before the breakup, that Hannah was in a really bad relationship, but she felt stuck.
Yep.
So Hannah finds out in August that she's pregnant with her second child, and it's very unexpected. And the 3 guys were the possible fathers: Jake Wagner, Charlie Gilly, or this third guy, Corey. Jake was telling everybody he thought he was the father. But according to Jake, leading up to the murders, Hannah wasn't allowing them to see Sophia.
Yeah, I think Ohio is the father has no rights to the child at all. It's kind of like here.
Yeah, and that's insane.
Yeah.
They really need to change laws to protect dads who want to be in their kids' lives, but maybe have a vindictive significant other in some cases.
Yeah.
Who use kids as pawns.
I've seen it both ways. I've seen it where it's good that the dad doesn't have any rights, being abusive or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one to.
Yeah, it is hard. But so I guess things are pretty quiet. And then eventually in April of 2016, Hannah delivers the new baby, Kylie.
Yep. And there's no father listed on the birth certificate.
Right.
So we told you after the murders, Jake filed for custody. He also filed for custody of the new baby because he didn't know if he was the dad or not.
Right. And he also said he wanted to keep the sisters together.
Yep.
It was 2 months after Hannah's death, that the paternity test proved that the baby is Charlie Gilly's. He got custody of baby Kylie after the murders, and there's nothing else about her,
good.
Which is good. Also about Sophia, after the murders, the only thing that was said about her was that she was safe in a neighboring county, and that's kind of all we know.
Yeah.
But you had a good point about parental rights in this situation.
Yeah. She can't be adopted unless he gives up his parental rights, or unless he is convicted of this crime, then the courts can take his parental rights if that's what they choose to do.
Right.
But so right now she still has to, possibly be in foster care right now because not adopted.
Yeah.
Because he's hasn't been convicted yet. So
let's move on to the murders. And as we progress in this episode by episode, we're going to jump back and forth because there are things that are relevant, but only when you have a grip on it. So we know that investigators have kind of figured out that these murders were planned starting in January of that year. So the murders were on April 22nd of 2016. They started planning them in January. And so what were they doing?
they're saying they studied their sleeping habits, the land layout, security camera locations, pets.
Yeah, so they were doing tons of surveillance. And the thing you have to remember is that these families were friends. And obviously, Jake is going to be in a lot of their houses when things are good because he's the father of Hannah's baby. And so I'm sure on a basic level, Jake kind of knew routines and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but they were watching them and monitoring social media and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they hacked into their social media, right?
They did. We found out that Jake was hacking into several of the Rhoden social medias. I mean, notably Hannah. And that kind of comes in as maybe motive later because essentially Hannah is talking to Tabitha, who is the mother of the brother's little boy. And remember, this is the woman who's already signed over her custody to the brother, to George Wagner.
Yep.
And she says to this woman, like, essentially, they're going to have to kill me first. I'm not signing over anything.
Yep.
We know that Jake saw this because there were a ton of personal messages found on the computer Angela uses on an Excel spreadsheet, I believe. And
That's
there were like,
crazy.
I think there was like 500 messages that she had saved. So they had been watching their social media for a very long time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And he's charged with that, actually. And here's the crazy thing. He didn't stop looking at her social media until like a year after they were dead.
That's just weird.
Is that not weird?
I mean, what are you monitoring?
I don't know. I mean, maybe to see.
I mean, is he just looking back through pictures or something?
I don't know. It's just very strange.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if he's not friends with some of her friends, it's easy for him to hop on and see what they're saying amongst themselves about all this. Maybe that was part of the motive, where he could see what other people in the town were saying. Because it was 2 years until they were arrested, and they weren't really on radar publicly for a while.
Yeah.
So,
it was around the homes where it was a wooded area.
Yeah, they're kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So it talked about security camera locations and stuff like that. I was thinking, what if he helped install some of those?
I mean, that's a good theory.
Like, what if that way he would know where they were. And
Yeah.
I think we have somewhere where they had the RF locators.
Yeah, they brought RF locators. That's on the evidence list, which kind of alerts you to when there's a recording device nearby.
Yeah, there's like several different ways those things work. One of them, it will, depending on which one you have, it will like flash a red light, and that lets you see camera lenses looking at you. Mm-hmm. So that way, and it does detect megahertz signals, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
they definitely planned these murders. I hate to say very well, because ultimately they were arrested and they have evidence against them. But then again, 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep. They did enough to delay it at least.
Yeah. So the weapons used was a 22 caliber long rifle, a 40 caliber gun, 30 caliber, and a 22 caliber. There were shell casings found at the crime scene. They were recovered from one of the Wagners' properties, which matched the shell casings found at the crime scene.
Right. But they had what do they call them? Brass catchers?
Yeah.
They had bought and attached brass catchers to the guns, which it's supposed to collect all the spent casings, which is just, preventing being caught. I think they did find one shell casing under a crib in Hannah's room. That'll all come in, with the trial, but they were very careful. I'm
going to tell you the other one that gets me is the dogs, because they said that they had ferocious dogs and hunting dogs.
Right.
So I don't know if you've ever been around a hunting dog.
Not really.
Those dogs bark and bark.
Really?
Oh, yeah. When I lived in West Virginia, we had one hunting dog. Literally, like, it wouldn't hush. Like, when there was movement in the woods, those dogs were, like, crazy barking.
Yeah.
Loud.
So, but that also kind of let investigators know that these people might have been known to the victims, because Leonard Manley, who is that's Dana's father, I believe, he said those dogs would have eaten up anybody. So he originally said it has to be somebody who knew them.
Yeah, because
and if you think about it, Jake lived at that house some.
Yeah.
So the dogs know his scent. He may know what their favorite treats are, that kind of thing.
Yep.
How do you think they got by the surveillance? If they didn't, because they can't cut it off. That would have probably alerted them if they have an app on their phone or something.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about video surveillance. I've installed several ones in businesses and residents. So for me, it's difficult to avoid a camera simply because the projection of the camera, like how far it records out, like am I in the shot or am I not in the shot? So there's no real definite way to know that. Like I have security cameras at my home. I know by looking at it, I know where I can stand where I'm not on camera. If that makes sense.
No, it does. I'm going to test that theory out with mine tomorrow.
Yeah. So you know where you can stand and where you can't. The other one, did he install an app? Did he have an app that would let him know? But still, if you're going to disable the camera, it's still going to record you when you first get to the camera.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm sure they might know what happened, and they're just not letting that out.
It's very hard to dodge a camera.
Yeah, so I'm a little curious as to how. I don't think they would have had time to go in and delete stuff or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah, because trail cameras are not wired. They're all wireless.
Oh.
They could have had wired cameras on their houses. I haven't really seen a picture of it, but trail cameras are wireless. Like you can stick them anywhere.
Oh, okay.
Like they strap them to a tree. Like,
gotcha. I don't know much about trail cameras. All I know is I clicked on something that was like creepy pictures from trail cameras, and I'll never do that again.
Yeah, it's like deer and bear and stuff. Yeah.
No, it's like zombie and like ghosts and
cool.
all this crazy stuff. Yeah. So, let's see where we are.
So
poor Bobby Joe Manley.
For real.
I do not know this woman. I want to find her and hug her.
Yeah.
So this is who initially found the first bodies. And this is Bobby Joe is Dana's sister.
Yep.
And so she normally feeds the animals at Chris Sr. and Gary's house. Remember, Chris Sr. and Dana divorced. They were living apart, but near each other because they were on good terms.
Yep.
So she goes like she normally does in the morning at 7:49 a.m. She gets there and she come to feed the dogs. And she has a key. The door was locked. So she uses the key and then she goes in and sees they're both dead. So she makes the initial 911 call and she's panicked and she thought they had been beaten to death. So it kind of makes you visualize, not that it's pleasant, but it probably wasn't recognized. They probably were not super recognizable after taking point blank to the face.
Yeah.
We know Chris Sr. Was shot the most, which was 9 times.
Yeah, and he was worked over pretty good. So they don't know. Obviously, he had some defensive wounds.
Yeah, he had a shot on his forearm. Like maybe he put his hand up. And I think he had some bruising. So there was maybe a sign of a struggle. So right out of the gate, if that's the first house they went to, they believe, because he was found to be the most decomposed. So they said it kind of makes sense that he was the first killing. But it sounds like maybe they weren't anticipating them to be awake.
Yeah. So after she found Chris and Gary, she calls 911, and I think they tell her, you can hear the call, to exit the house. So she runs next door to Frankie and Hannah Gilly's house, and she hears a baby crying, and she finds those two dead. So she remember there was a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old.
Yep.
So she takes those kids out to her car. She then calls her brother, James, to go to Dana's house.
Right.
And he finds those deceased.
So he sees that Dana and Hannah Rhoden are dead in that house. Little Chris comes in. He's in that house dead, but unfortunately authorities do not find him until later that day.
And we've discussed this. Like, I can understand why James wouldn't find him, because I'm sure, like,
he didn't linger.
No, like, he sees that. I would exit as well, because 911 told Bobby Joe to exit too.
Right, get out of the house.
Get out of the house. Don't stay in there. But for me, the police going in, you should clear all rooms. One, if there's an active shooter still on the property.
Yes.
And two, I mean, that's your job. You're to clear the scene before firemen can come in, EMS can come in, like any of that. Your job is to clear the scene. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Little Chris he's 16. So they verified he did not come to school that day. Initially, before they found little Chris, the town was buzzing that could it have been little Chris that killed his whole family.
Yeah. And
it wasn't until I don't know for sure, but I want to say it was like after 1:00 that they went back in and found him dead beside the bed.
Yeah, like,
how do you miss a dead human?
Yeah. I mean, it said he was laying next to his bed.
Yeah.
And I get that, but you still should clear the room.
I would think that you would, when you go in a house and there are murder victims who have been viciously murdered at that, would you not look under beds to make sure a shooter isn't hiding? And how do you miss a dead teenager laying by his bed for hours?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
No. So then another call comes into 911, and it is Donald Stone, who's a cousin, and he finds Kenneth, which is Chris Sr.'s brother, dead in his, I think it was a camper type deal.
Yeah, it was just like a fifth wheel camper on some land.
Yeah.
And I think he was the only victim that was alone.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they, in all 4 crime scenes, 32 gunshot wounds between 8 victims.
That's crazy.
There was no signs of forced entry, which this is such a tiny, tiny little town. I remember in the 80s here, we didn't lock our doors at night.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure with that small town and the fact that they all probably had weapons and it's a quiet town where nothing ever happens, with no signs of forced entry at any place, it just kind of makes me think they kept the doors unlocked.
Yeah, I mean, they could have.
I mean, they could have, Jake could have had keys made. We don't know.
Yeah. But that's what last thing I do. I walk the house and make sure all the doors are locked.
Oh, I do too. And I was sitting here thinking, how did nobody wake up? Well, I watched a video on YouTube today because I'm not super familiar with guns. They terrify me. But there was a video of a guy shooting a 22 with and without a suppressor. And I was super shocked at how quiet the suppressor was. So it makes sense. Yeah. If I'm in a deep sleep, I probably would not wake up to that sound.
Yeah.
I think clearly Chris Sr. surprised them, but it seems like maybe everybody else was in bed. Although I kind of have a theory maybe little Chris wasn't, just because he was found beside his bed. Something got him up. If they'd have shot him asleep in the bed, I think he would have been in the bed.
Yeah, that or he was hiding.
It could be.
I mean,
it's just such a sad thought either way, but
yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean, we've covered a lot of stuff, and if you haven't heard of this case yet, don't get overwhelmed.
Oh yeah. I'm still overwhelmed, and I've been eyeball deep in it for 2 days. But once you get the names down pat, And there are just focus names in this case, and every victim is important. It's just there are about 4 people really that make up the bulk of the motive and to me and the case.
Yeah, exactly. So our next one, we can kind of get into investigation a little bit, and kind of pick up from there. But just so you're introduced to everybody and kind of understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's really a lot, and we're already at 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think instead of jumping into details, like in between now and Sunday, I think if you guys really super want to learn about this case, I've posted a couple of videos as well that gives a really good rundown with visuals that I think might help. But I promise you guys, once you learn all these names, this case is so interesting.
Yeah.
And it's huge because we're going to have 4 separate trials. I think a lot of the evidence obviously is going to be the same, but it's just this is a big one. Yeah. And I've told you since we started this podcast, if we ever added cases, I really wanted to do this one.
Yeah.
There's just so many victims. It's a mass shooting. It's just there are family members left behind. The grandmother, you think about her. She has lost 2 sons, 3 grandkids, and a daughter-in-law. Her whole family's gone almost.
Yep. I felt bad. There's a video of her kind of pleading because for a long time they didn't know anything. They didn't know who did anything.
There were theories in the beginning, and we didn't talk about that.
Yeah. They just didn't know who had done these killings. So I know some of the theories was it was a Mexican cartel because there were some marijuana plants growing on the property. And
not just some. I mean, it was $500,000 worth.
Yeah.
But that's just not Mexican. That's not worth their time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is typically when Mexican cartels come in and kill, they kill kids too. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't leave anybody alive. It's a statement.
Yeah.
So, but for a while it was kind of that. Maybe it's drugs. Then it moved to, there was a threat put on Facebook. Apparently Frankie drove like a demolition car.
Yep. Demolition derby.
Yeah.
Yep.
And his car was pretty high compared to the other cars, was expensive and nice and that kind of thing. And so I think there was a little bit of some words exchanged, and the person that he exchanged words with, it was the most poorly timed thing to put on Facebook ever. But right before the murders, he said something about, don't make me go up to Union Road and take them all out.
Yeah.
So pretty quickly, once they saw that message, they looked at him, and obviously it wasn't him. It was just a very poorly timed thing to put out there.
Yep.
And there was one more theory. Trying to think, what was the third theory? It was a cartel hit, and then Chris Sr. had been involved in a road rage thing, and I think the person that he had gotten into an argument with had recently been sentenced in that case. I don't really know if it was major or what. So those were kind of the 3 things initially that they looked into, because I mean, I don't think at that point anybody would have suspected the Wagners.
No, and that's, you have the Rhoden family, an extended family, the Manleys, like they don't know anything, so they don't know who's done what. They don't have any charges, nothing. So they're pleading with anybody who knows anything. They were saying, I know somebody knows something. And like some of the ladies that spoke on the special last night, they were terrified, like the whole town.
Yeah.
Because this didn't happen there. Like, this kind of stuff never happened in that town. Mm-hmm. So they were, like, the families were pleading, and the grandmother, I just felt so bad for her because she lost her sons and, like you said, her grandkids. And she talked about Dana coming and helping take care of her.
Yeah. She has some physical, problems. It's very clear when you see her. She's got some struggles. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you, she was at every hearing that first year, and then I think it just got to be too much for her.
Yeah.
And you can tell it probably was a job to get there with her physical condition. And man, she just, I can't imagine. Can you imagine your kids, your grandkids just gone in one night?
No, I mean, death, these other cases that we've had is, a couple of one, two, whatever. It's hard enough.
Oh, a whole family.
But then you throw in 8.
Yeah.
8 in one family. It's not 8 different people, like from different families.
Yeah.
It's like 8 people from one family. So
yeah, they wiped out the entire 2 generations.
Yeah.
And with, and left the kids, but still, I mean, yeah, so we are watching a lot of hearings that have happened over the past couple of years. We're reading, but we really wanted to kind of do this tonight. I know it sounds jumbled, and we're sorry. It's just there are 12 main players in this whole thing.
Yeah.
So just try to look up some stuff, get a good grip, because we are going to have plenty of episodes just building up to where we can even kind of wrap this case up to where we are today.
Yeah. So Jake Wagner has a trial coming up in August?
Yes. At the end of August, COVID has definitely thrown a lot of wrenches in these trial dates. Right now, he's the only one scheduled for trial, and understandably, the Rhoden family is getting frustrated. It's been nearly 5 years since these murders, and nobody's been to trial yet. So hopefully this will go off in August. I think it might, because, COVID numbers are coming down. And clearly, I think when the courts feel it's just like minimally safe to do so, I think they'll start, because you're getting backlogged.
Yeah.
You're starting to get cases that are just piling up. Things are getting delayed. And so who knows? But this is going to be a very long case for us to cover, I think. I'm excited to do it. There's just so many working pieces.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And there's a lot we don't know. What we know is very minimal. So hopefully we'll start, finding out things as we get closer in. But on the next episode, we're going to talk about how the investigation kicks off and some strange things that happen, autopsy reports, and what evidence we know they have. And so we'll just keep rolling on this. There hasn't been anything with the Victoria Rose case last week. Seems very quiet.
Yeah.
We're keeping an eye on that, and always keeping an eye on Lori and Chad. And so, yeah, now that we've taken on all these cases, it's kind of like I'm looking in 10 different places at once sometimes.
I know, right?
But I like it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd just, be home doing nothing. So
Exactly.
Or being mom. It's not nothing, but.
Yeah, you sit around and eat bonbons all day.
I wish I could sit around and eat bonbons. I wish somebody put me on restrictions and send me to my room.
I know, right? It's like funny how you get back to that.
It's like I take
Please
back all,
ground me to my room.
and I take back all the naps I never took.
Yeah.
What an idiot.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I saw something that said, what would you go back and tell your 5-year-old self? I was like, take the nap.
Yeah. Sleep.
Don't fight it.
Sleep. Yeah.
So I think this is a good stopping point. We've introduced you to everybody and kind of gotten to the murderers. So we will pick this up Sunday.
Yeah. If you haven't, don't forget to go sign that change.org thing for Victoria Rose.
Yes. Very important.
It's getting a lot of numbers. So
Tons.
go there and sign. Please be kind to us. Be kind.
Yeah.
What was that thing you used to get in a Blockbuster thing? Be kind and rewind. You remember that?
Yeah. Did you ever rewind your videos?
Yeah, because didn't they charge you if you didn't?
50 cents. I probably spent about $500 in rewind fees in the 90s because I never rewound.
Blockbuster. Okay, who went and hid? Like who hid it? The DVD or for us it would have been VHS. Did you hide a VHS tape like behind something else to come back and get it later so nobody would rent it?
Yes. And I worked at Blockbuster for a hot minute when I was in high school. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. And, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. We would hide the tag, like the things so we could come back.
You know what's funny? They used to charge you like 50 cents to rewind your tape, but they had this thing they could stick in and like it would be rewound in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It was such a scam.
That's a lot of money.
Scam.
Yep.
Man, it seems like forever that we've had to go pick out our movies.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, pull it up and it's there.
Yep.
Crazy. All right, guys. Well, we're going to keep an eye on everything. We're going to keep diving into this case. And if there's anything you guys want to know, shoot us a message on Twitter or Facebook, any questions you have. And I think that's about all.
Yeah, you guys are awesome reaching out.
Yeah. And in fact, can I just say, I don't have her name right here, but somebody reached out to me on Instagram in our messages and said, you might want to rethink the baby goat yoga. I don't think you're taking into consideration that baby goats aren't potty trained. And if you can imagine being in like a downward dog position and baby goat needs to go potty.
No.
So now I don't want to do baby goat yoga.
See, I told you.
I changed my mind.
Nope.
I
totally agree. I think her name was Aubrey or Audrey or something.
Yeah, she was so funny. I was like, I never thought of that.
Yeah, nope, I'm good.
Yeah, so we're not going to be doing any baby yoga.
No baby goat yoga.
Baby yoga. Listen to me.
Baby yoga.
Oh, I do. My little great niece, I could stick her on my back.
There you go.
She's like 9 months old.
My great nephew, he gets on mine.
Heck yeah. I'll stand on your back.
Negative.
All right, guys. You all have a nice evening, and we will see you Sunday.
Good night.